Okay, so you have the idea for your comic. You've designed the character. You know what that character wants. So now it's time to start drawing, right? Wait! You need to stop drawing immediately! I'm you from the future! You need to write a script for your comic! Gasp! You'll thank me later, trust me! Write the script! Just do it!
But why? It takes so long.
No! You don't understand! I'm you from the future where we didn't write a script for the comic and just started drawing!
But it takes so long.
I'm you from the future! In 4 days! Ah!
And that's why I don't usually show my face on camera. Anyway, let's get to making a script for Death's Favorite Daughter, a webcomic that I am writing, drawing, and lettering on camera for your viewing and educational pleasure. Now, we've already designed our heroine Efeldrin Bloodveil and given her a backstory, so now it's time to break down how I write a script for this webcomic. I'm going to do my best to show you all the steps that I go through to make my ideas into a functional, professional-looking script that is easy to use for you and your artist. Or if you're the artist, it's easy for you, you get the idea. But first, a little disclaimer. This video is very rough cut because my process is very difficult to explain as it is mostly cerebral, meaning that I do most of the writing in my head and not on paper or any other tangible means. So I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm thinking and why, but some of my logic may make more sense to me than to you because I'm not explaining it well, or my mind has already solved the problem and moved on from what I'm saying. But I'll try my best to vocalize what I'm thinking as much as I can. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Okay, first up, we need to plot our story out in a simple linear form that we can track as we write. This is the backbone of the chapter, so we want to make sure that only the most important details are written out, but we also want to keep the ideas simple so that the chapter doesn't feel rushed or overcrowded. Some of this may change, but for now, let's try to map out all of our story beats and important themes. So first things first, I'm going to look back at what our story has been so far. In Chapter 1, we introduced Efeldrin and hinted at her backstory. We also started the conflict with her being trapped in the material plane and her mission to open up a gate to the underworld. In Chapter 2, we introduced Eric, our other protagonist. We also showed his backstory and his connection to the demons of this world as a sin eater, and a bit of a cleric, kind of a homebrew thing I'm working on. There's more to explain, but I'll get to that in a different video. The important thing is, he's now cursed and marked by all the demons of this realm who are pursuing him relentlessly to take his soul. We ended that chapter with Eric meeting Efeldrin as she was roused from her sleep by Eric and the demons. Now we need to show them meeting each other formally for the first time and how they will face the threat of the demons and the mission that Efeldrin has yet to reveal to the mortal realm. For this stage, I've got my sketchbook and a multicolor pen, and I'm going to show you how I work out my ideas for Chapter 3, but there are a couple of things that you should know about me before we start. 1, I was only ever taught to write in cursive. I know it's weird, but I was never formally taught how to write in print, so my letters get a tad messy. And number 2, I have awful penmanship and spelling, so I'll try to translate what I'm writing for you off to the side, but just know that you're in for a brutal massacre of the English language. Anyway, let's get into it. I want to start out by writing a quick summary of my points here, what I want to accomplish for this chapter, and what I want to lead into for my next chapter. Right now I have 2 protagonists. I have Eric and I have Efeldrin, and both of them have had their own time in the spotlight, but now I want to have them both interact with each other as their stories intersect. So I've got to think about their characters and themes and how they will work or not work together. So I'm just going to write down some of those themes that come to mind. And some of the ideas that I have will cause these personalities to clash. For example, Efeldrin wants to open a portal to the underworld to fight the demons, and Eric is cursed by demons and wants to not be captured and tortured by them. So they share a common enemy, but they also have a very, very different motivation. One is survival, while the other is, well, opening a portal to the underworld. It's important to me to figure out my characters first, since they are the ones that are guiding my story, and their point of view is what we as the viewer are following. Right now I'm in a pretty good headspace for my characters, so now I'm going to write out my timeline. This is a rough idea of the general topics and scenes we will cover in this story. I try to keep it kind of loose to begin with, but I do need this to support my whole chapter, so I eventually need to settle down with my ideas and try to stick with it in my later stages. Up first, we are starting with a fight with the demons that we left off in the last chapter. If this were a first issue or a different scenario, we could begin with an establishing shot or idea, but this is a continuation of the last chapter, so we have it pretty easy in this stage. I could show you in another video how I would start a comic, but for now let's move on to the next bit. This fight will show the beginning of how our heroes can work together. That is, if they can survive, of course. After the fight, I think I'm going to have the lead devil escape, and this will give our heroes a chance to meet each other and establish themselves and the narrative stakes. At this point, characters can clash, get along, or have mixed feelings about each other as this is their first meeting. You want to keep the characters' personalities and motivations in mind as you write though. For example, Efeldrin is extreme and very flamboyant compared to Eric, who's more reserved and calculating. So both of them will be all but at each other's throats as neither of them really understands the other. So this argument needs to show that they're not willing to work with each other at first. I'm going to do this because conflict is like potato chips. You can never have too many as long as you find a way to resolve them in a nice, tidy fashion. E.g. eating a lot of potato chips. The next story beat is that I need them to realize that they have to work together because of a threat that neither of them can handle. Right now I'm thinking of having them being trapped in the town that they are in. This is because the devil that escaped puts a spell or some sort of ward or shield around them, but we'll see if that sticks or not. I'll refine that as we go. I just need the story beat for now. So the next story beat is that they need to find a way to track down the source of this spell or ward and find a way to stop it. I have a few ideas, so I'll write those out, but the main thing is that they have to work together despite their differences, and those differences are going to come out in this particular part of the story. I'm making a note, I'm making sure I underline it. This is when they're really going to clash. Their personalities are really shown at this point. But the clock is ticking because they need to do this before the end of the next day or the portal will not be able to be opened into the underworld. Note that this is a problem only for one of our protagonists, Efeldrin. Right now, Eric doesn't know about that, and so this might be another bit of conflict later if he does find out why she's in such a hurry. Which might be a fun little thing to tease for the next issue, or another part of the comic. Finally, for the last beat, I need them, because of their misunderstandings of each other and lack of cooperation, to fall into a trap or some sort of sticky situation or lose a battle at the end of this chapter so that it can be resolved in the next chapter or the chapter after that. For this next stage, I'm going to plan out the story panel by panel, but first let's discuss formatting so we don't run into trouble as we plan out our pages. Since this is a webcomic, all of the pages are going to be about the size of the screen they are going to be on. In this case, the size is 800 pixels by about 1200 pixels. Because of this reduced size, you don't want to have more than one panel on your screen because it can make your webcomic crowded, so each 800 pixel by 1200 pixel quote-unquote page can't be considered one single panel. For traditional comics, you'll have much more freedom to format your panels, and if you need tips and tricks on that, I have a series of videos that can help you out on that will pop up in the card on the right or left, or it'll pop up. It's on my channel. It's pretty great. But either way, this method of thumbnailing should help you out as you plan your comic or webcomic. I'm taking a pen, a single subject notebook, and a pack of 2" by 1.5" sticky notes to help me plan out my pages. This doesn't have to be followed to the letter, but I find that the size of the sticky notes help me to focus not too much on the thumbnails and also gives me an idea of how the panels will be laid out. I'm setting up my panels vertically since they will be scrolled through on a phone or a computer. For traditional comics, I'll set up 2 pages beside each other, like so. That way I have an idea of how the comic will be read in a printed format with page spreads. Each of these sticky notes represent a page, so beside them I will write out the panel number and a theme of what's happening. Think of this kind of like the chapters of the scene selection menu on a DVD. I'm plotting out the basics of the story by writing out a simple summary of what I want on this page and sketching out a quick thumbnail of what that looks like. The thumbnail sketch should only take a few minutes to make with a pen. No erasing. You want to let your ideas flow in this stage and let the visuals come as naturally and messily as they will. That's why we've restricted our drawing area to just a sticky note, so we don't fuss over the drawing or worry too much about perfection or anything else. We just want ideas, raw, quick, simple ideas. If the sketch isn't what I'm looking for, I'll remove the sticky note and replace it. Or if I think that a scene that I've drawn would work elsewhere, I'll save the sketch and move it to where I think it'll look better, or maybe just peel it off and put it to the side for now. Okay, so dialogue. At this stage, I already have an idea of how I want my characters to talk to each other, and some of the lines are already in my head. But I usually work out the dialogue in visuals rather than just writing it out. I don't know why, but writing the dialogue just isn't as effective for me as it is seeing the sketches, so sometimes I skip it until I'm writing the script formally. I can't fully explain this process as most of it's just in my head. I think it's a reactionary process in my mind, like what would Eric or Feldrin say if this were happening, and I have to see what's happening, otherwise I can't come up with the dialogue. It's kind of like I have to put myself in a box before I can figure out a way to get out of it. I have to see the scene and think, all right, what would my characters do? And that's all in my head. I really don't write anything out. I don't think of anything. If I can put a process to it, usually I'm just walking outside. I'll go for a walk and I'll just figure out what I want the characters to say. And honestly, I don't know of a better process. I'll make notes as I go that help me as I'm working from panel to panel. These notes can be anything from a note to look up reference later, or a silly comment that I make to myself, or even things that I think the readers will say while they are reading, like, oh, she's hot, or gross, that's terrible. Anything that comes to mind that I want to get across to my readers gets written down, or drawn, or sketched, or doodled to the side. This is the rough draft of the story, so everything is getting used. All of my ideas are just coming out onto the page so that when I go to the script, everything is out there, and I know exactly what I want to say. Note that the footage that you're seeing is heavily redacted. There's actually a much longer version of this video where I talk on and kind of just mumble into the microphone as I work through mentally how I'm going to script out this page and thumbnail out some of the panels. The link for it will pop up when it's available. I don't know if it's going to be in this video or not. Check the description. Let's just say that. Check the description below. See? Like natural mumbling like this. This is what you'll get, you know, non-professional presentation. Okay, but you get the idea. You'll get to see an unfiltered, very raw view of how I work and how I think through making comics. Oh dear. Don't lean on that. Everything moves if you lean on that. Wow, okay. You live and learn, guys. With the thumbnails finished, I'm going to move forward to the next step, which is typing out the script. Well, my version of typing, since I'd never learned how to actually type. Anyway, I'm using a tool that I highly recommend to anyone who wants to create professional comic scripts with formatting that makes it easy to work with and read. Comic Writer is a free application that you can use to easily write your scripts in your browser. It has quick and easy formatting options like word bubbles, sound effects, templates, so you can plot everything in your script. It also has a word counter that only counts dialogue and not the formatting text, so you know how much your characters are saying, so you can plan out your panels with ease. I use the death out of this thing, so I have put it through its paces, and I still think this is my favorite comic writing app of all time. Really, I've tried all kinds of other things. I've tried writing in notes on my phone, I've tried working with Word. No, this is what you want. Get this, because even if all of that doesn't tantalize you enough, it's free, which I think I already said before, but seriously, use it. I have a pretty good idea of how I want this panel to look, but I need to describe it to future me when he's drawing this all out. I also need to describe how I want my panels to transition from one to the other, since I don't have the traditional layout of comic panels with frames and gutters to separate my scenes. I make sure to add panels of just blank space, or colors, or transitional gradients, so that the reader has space to scroll up and down and reveal what is next in the comic. I'm using the medium of the webcomic to enhance the pacing and storytelling of the comic for the reader. I make sure to use all the tools of the program to make the script's description of the scene as vivid as possible. I don't want to have any questions about how something should look or sound while I'm drawing or lettering this comic. I want to be able to sit down, pull up my script, and just work. And that's really all this process is. It's making sure that when you're making your comic, you're just doing that. You're making your comic. You're not figuring out the story, you're not solving problems, you're just working on the art or the lettering or, the shading or panel guttering. I don't know, just all the other problems that you'll run into making comics, but not the story. Looking at my notes and thumbnails, I can now start to work out what my characters are saying, both internally and externally. I start to have conversations with myself and my characters to make the dialogue sound more realistic, so it isn't clunky when the readers try to read it. I wish there was an easier way to explain how dialogue works in a comic, but for me, it's just very much in my head. My characters act and talk like they do because I can't imagine them any other way, so the words that I have them say are just a result of that. Now, whether that's a good method or not, I don't know. I probably should look more into writing classes for that, but for now, this is my process, so sorry. Alright, are you ready for my most controversial step? This is the one that's either going to make you want to stab me with the sword, or like and subscribe so that you can watch more of these videos every Tuesday at 12. Oh. I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me refine some of my script.
Raider!
No, I'm not going to let it rewrite my script or even come up with any of the scenes or dialogue. I will be, however, letting it expound upon my ideas or my descriptions. For instance, let's take this description of the scene. Now, for me, it's okay since I'm the artist as well as the writer. I know what I'm talking about, but if I pass this on to anyone to review or critique this script, they might not understand what I'm trying to convey. And besides, I might forget what I was trying to convey to myself in the future when I actually draw this. So I could grab a thesaurus and write out a bunch of flowery descriptions to help me get my message across for every single panel, or I can just type, refine this scene description using more descriptive and dynamic text. And then ChatGPT will spit out a generally okay of what I'm already describing. I'm not using AI to make my work. I am, however, using it to enhance and speed up my writing process, and also make sure that my grammar and spelling are in check. You can also use ChatGPT to reword dialogue or suggest different ways of saying ideas. I generally only use it for inspiration or for refinement, and not for creation, with one big exception: sound effects. Have you ever tried Googling what comic book sound effect should I use for the sound that a demon makes when he slams through a wall and hits a cabbage cart on the other side? If you have, then you're on a watch list now, and you also still don't have a clue of what kind of zing or pop or splorch sound effect you want to use in your comic. You just don't find this kind of stuff. I mean, there's no directory that I've found so far, and if you have found it, please let me know, because I will buy that book or subscribe to that channel or whatever. But until then, with ChatGPT, I can type in what kind of sound or description that I want to put in my comic, and it'll give me the text that I can use in my comic to perfectly describe what kind of sound effect that I want. And ChatGPT is useful in another way. It's incredibly limited in the fact that it cannot comprehend the vision that I have for my story, so anything it generates will be less than what I can come up with. And this I can use in my process. When I'm stumped with a scene, I can ask AI what I should do, and usually the solution it generates is nowhere close how I know that I want my story to be. In my head, I know what I want, I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. But now AI's told me how it's going to be. And that's a step forward, because now I'm challenged to describe to the AI why the AI is wrong. Or I'm going to outwrite the AI and make my own version of it, because now I'm proving that I have a better idea than the AI has come up with. Sometimes it just takes someone or something telling you how you should fix a problem to help you be motivated to fix it yourself. With the script completed, or at least drafted to my satisfaction, I print out the physical copy and I staple it together. This way I can highlight, I can doodle, or I can mark it up in any way as I work. You don't have to print out your script, but I find it handy to have something that I can pick up while I'm drawing and look at it, or yell at it, or scribble on it, or, get frustrated at it, or, we all create in different ways. I hope this has been educational and informative to you. I know this is a lot to cover and there's a lot of different steps, but this is the process that I use that helps me make scripts. And there's a lot of things that I would change about it. There's some things that are still evolving or getting better as we go. But generally speaking, the important thing that you do is that you're actually making. Feel free to try out this method or cherry pick parts of it that you like to create your own. But the main important thing that you do is that you make your own comic and you make it well. And with a script. Otherwise, bad things can happen. Bad things can happen. Next on Comic Blueprint, I'll be working on the sketching and penciling phase of the comic, so look forward to that. But until then, make sure to like and subscribe and comment so I can know that these videos are helpful or if I missed anything. Thank you so much for watching. Now go make something awesome.
This is actually the script for this video. The other script is completely safe. It's over here, right? Wait, is this the right one? Oh, good. Yeah, this is the script for the video that took me so long to make, and I'm just... Yeah, there we go. See? This is why you print your scripts. Alright, I need a nap. I'm sleeping with the sword.